what is the key ingredient to being money-wise? Who wants to give me a guess? What is the key ingredient to being money-wise? Not everybody all at once. Learning, organization, self-control. Good. You, my friend, are the closest without going over. Discipline. Discipline is the key ingredient, and we are going to get to the meat of that after I share some very encouraging things. But I'm just going to tell you here, when you start something new or different, as with anything, there is a learning curve, right? There is an adjustment period. There's a time for change that you have to allow yourself, like that, adjusting to these new patterns, new behaviors. And oftentimes, when we consider how we've spent our money, how many of you would say you're a rock star with how you spent your money? You've got it down. You know what you're doing. No, there's no fault to be found. And you're okay, good. I'm glad we're a room of honest people. That's good. Usually the first thing that has to happen when we sit there and contemplate how we've handled our finances, the first thing that needs to happen is we have to grant ourselves some forgiveness. How many of you would say that you would need to, or you could benefit from extending yourself some forgiveness? You've made some mistakes. I appreciate that. We know ourselves. We know we've made some stupid mistakes. Maybe you have way too many Pokemon cards or Beanie Babies or Starbucks mugs that, now you're like, shoot, what did I do with all my money? Well, it's right there. We can see where it went. We have to grant ourselves forgiveness. So I'm just going to tell you how I'm going to organize this so you can follow along. The first thing I'm going to give you 6 points on these keys to be money-wise. We're going to focus on that last point, number 6. So that's where we're going to hone in. So if you want to number your page or anything like that, that's where we're headed. I like to know where we're going. So the first verse, Philippians 3, 13 through 15. And this is I think Paul speaking, but I'm going to also just say myself included here. Brothers and sisters, I'm adding the sisters because there's a lot of sisters in here. I do not consider myself, Charity Bradshaw, to have yet laid hold of it. I'm here as a learner right along with you guys. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind. Forgetting what is behind, right? And straining toward what is ahead. We today cannot change anything about yesterday. We can't even change things about 2 hours ago. It's already done. It's already happened. So regarding our finances, we must forgive what is behind, and strain towards what is ahead. I press on toward the goal to win the prize of God's heavenly calling in Christ Jesus. Anybody else in here competitive? I want the prize. Does anybody else want the prize? Okay. I thought I was the only one that might want the prize, but I want the prize. Maybe you also want the prize of God's heavenly calling in Christ Jesus. All of us who are mature should embrace this point of view. We cannot change what is behind. We can only strain and change what is ahead. And it starts with forgiving ourselves. How many of you would say you were never taught financial stuff? Okay. Maybe you, like me, didn't know what you didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. I'll tell you this. How many of you ever passed on good advice? Someone tried to give you good advice, and you're like, I'm good. And then later you're like, I'll give you an example. One of my really good friends back in Dallas when I was single and I was out of college, I was making good money, but I had no idea I was making good money because I didn't know about money. This was my only financial wisdom. He was like, Charity, you could probably benefit from living on a budget. And all that sounded like was money jail. Like, I don't want to be in money jail. That sounds like a really sad, sad place, and I don't want to be there. And what I told him was, I'm okay. I just spend less than I make. And I thought that was pretty big. Like, for somebody my age, I was like, I'm doing pretty good. I'm spending less than I make. Winning. I look back, I was probably 22 or 23 at that time, and I kick myself for passing on good advice. So if anybody else can say they've passed on good advice, I've been there. How many of you have taken bad advice? Okay, so there's the other side. If somebody's giving you poor financial advice, here's my advice on advice. If you wouldn't trade places, don't take their advice. If you wouldn't trade places, don't take their advice. So that's just my little point on advice. How many of you would say you might be a sucker for deals? 20% off, 30% off, 0% interest, no fine. Oh my goodness, we are buying into that lie. Maybe we've created bad habits. Click to add to cart. Add to cart. Immediately go. Go and get the deal. Like we have these habits, like drive-through. I mean, we don't even realize we're spending 300 times or 300% more going through a drive-through than doing it ourselves. 300 times. We know how much it costs to make a coffee at home. Yet we go and we want the coffee. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I hate coffee. But I understand you people with your problems. And you have those needs that you have, those very special needs that you have to have it exactly your way when you want it your way. But we've created these habits. We've created these problems. We've taken these bad advice. We've ignored good advice. And here we are in sort of a financial vortex of I've got to get out of here. And I'm not really sure what my next step is. So once we've forgiven ourselves, we need to start fresh. We need to be willing to humble ourselves and wipe the slate clean and start from a fresh place. How many of you would be honest enough to say, I'm going to work on forgiving myself from young and dumb, from last week and dumb, whatever? Okay, good. You stand a chance. You stand a chance. This kind of change can be intimidating. How many of you would say that really being honest with yourself about finances could be something that might be overwhelming if you were to actually really investigate? It could be overwhelming. If you ignore it long enough, it goes away, right? No. It just does what? It gets worse. It gets bigger. It gets more scary. It gets more tentacles. All those kinds of things. But I'm going to tell you this. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, for the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. This is the Spirit that we have. This is the Spirit that we have access to. This is what has been given to us. We have this. Whether we choose to use it is the thing that we've got to actually examine, but we have this Spirit. This has been given to us. As believers, we possess this. Just like we possess the mind of Christ. Do we often use the mind of Christ or always use the mind of Christ? No. Could we work on that? Yes. The goal for this kind of change, the goal for this radical salvation of our finances is something that has to be so, I use this word, juicy, desirable, wantable, or it's not sustainable. It's got to be something that we want enough to change. And who knows how easy change is? Who knows how easy change is? If you're over 10 minutes old, you already know change is hard. I love this. My sister, one of my sisters does not have children, and she was giving me some parenting advice, which is my favorite parenting advice. And, she was telling me this child should just be able to change and should just be able to do this. And I was like, I know, right? Tell me how you do that. Tell me how you change. And I'm saying the same for me. I know how hard it is to get me to change, much less my teenager. Right? So here we are, we're admitting this is going to be a difficult process. And I'm not the sugarcoater, okay? So I hope this broccoli goes down nice and smooth. You're going to feel better, you're going to be stronger when you're done. That's what I'm telling you, okay? What would be the biggest motivator for us to make this change? What is usually the biggest and best motivator for change? Pain, a crisis, pain. When we are in pain, we are then motivated to figure out how to get out of pain, right? But before we're in pain, we're like, I'm fine, even though the problem may already be underlying. Pain is a great motivator. It is something, especially in the Christian community, we often want to pray the pain away. But pain produces. Pain produces. How many of you have ever lifted a weight? Anybody ever lifted a weight? What did you feel in that moment? A little bit of discomfort. Well, it depends on how much you lifted. If you lifted a 1 pound weight, then we're not even talking about you. Let's say you lifted a 10 pound weight. What did you feel? Some challenge. If you lifted a 50 pound weight, what did you feel? You're feeling you're getting closer to the Spirit, getting closer to heaven. If you're lifting 100 pounds, what are you feeling? There might be some pain in there. Is that bad? No, because what happens when you're done? You're stronger. You grow. Friends, we're going to be lifting some weight today.